Now our next speaker is Andrew Potter. I met Andrew 4 or 5 years ago. Yes. Andrew and his partner, Mike Ramel, were coming out of the oil and gas industry. They were in the financial management side of it. And they met with one of my colleagues and I, and they said, tell us about hemp. I did a university project on hemp. Tell us about hemp. And so we told them about hemp, and they learned a lot. They had some family connections in Saskatchewan, so they started up their first projects there. They've got 4 facilities operating in Saskatchewan, and we're very pleased to have them coming back to Alberta for their next expansion. We're very pleased to have the announcement this morning. Congratulations on that. And I'll have you tell your story now.
Good. Yes. Okay. Good stuff. All right. Thanks, everybody. And again, I think you've already heard a little bit about Blue Sky today, so I'll try and keep this fairly short. But thanks for the intro, Lori Jo. And I'll just give you a little bit more background. Yeah, exactly. I spent better part of 20 years in oil and gas corporate finance. At one point, I just got to the point of just being under the gun and being criticized, and just wanted to be on the right side of change. Wanted to do something more entrepreneurial with my career, and that was in 2017. I had done a course actually on industrial hemp back in my university days, so back when I was in business school, and it had just always stuck with me, all the backstory of hemp and everything that you could do with this crop. So in 2017, that's kind of where I was at. I left the oil and gas industry. Wanted to dive into hemp and learn as much about it, and we spent the better part of 6 months, and there was a great community. I think we met with Dan, actually, and Lori Jo, and a lot of other people in this room, and a great community, very open, people willing to share their experiences and help get us underway. So that was really how we got started in the industry. At the time when we founded the company, again, that was 2017, there was no specific intent to go to Saskatchewan, but when we started the company, what you had was 2 finance guys that knew absolutely nothing about agriculture. So next step is teamed up with 2 other co-founders, very strong backgrounds in agronomy and agriculture, and they happened to be in Saskatchewan. So that's just made a natural path to put our initial facilities there. But the plan was always to not be done with just this first set of facilities in Saskatchewan. The plan has always been much bigger than that, is to expand both nationally and internationally. So this is really, I guess, the big opportunity that we saw in 2017, and I'd say, if anything, I see this opportunity and believe it even more now that we're 4 years into this. The only unfortunate thing is that, on the left-hand side, I mean, we're still growing very, very small amounts of hemp acres in Canada. So as Ted pointed out, I think less than 100,000 acres. So internally, and the way I explain our vision to investors is that, I absolutely believe that 1 million acres of hemp in the next 5 to 10 years is very much a possibility. In fact, I think we could go beyond that. But what we really challenged ourselves early on as a company is really understanding what's holding this phenomenal plant back. Like, what is keeping us from breaking out of the 100,000 acres? And we really boiled it down to 4 things that we needed to focus on as a company to really make this happen and do our part to unlock industrial hemp. And the first is improving plant genetics. So again, for a lot of reasons, I mean, there wasn't, through all those years of prohibition, there was not a lot of effort put into optimizing plant genetics. A little bit around optimizing for grain purposes. A couple of years ago, you saw a lot of work done in the States all around feminized plant CBD production, but that's not really relevant to kind of the business model that we're pursuing. So we really realized if this whole plant utilization approach is going to happen, we've got to get behind it and put some effort into improving the plant genetics. So we've worked with the company, Verve. I'm not sure if they're here. Anyways, we've worked with the local company. I think they're at the back there, on a breeding program specifically targeting kind of whole plant utilization and optimizing genetics for that. So to date, we've been funding that out of our own pocket. Inc. has now joined us in that program, but that is going to yield very strong results very soon. So first thing that had to happen, again, improving plant genetics for whole plant utilization. I think we're well on track to that. That's going to have a big impact over the next couple of years. The second thing that had to happen is product innovation. And I'm not talking about big, long, multi-year R&D projects, but just slight tweaks to the existing products to make them more consumer-friendly. So as an example, I'll talk about that our new purified hemp seed oil. That's a good example of the types of things we're trying to do. We've been selling traditional cold-pressed hemp seed oil for the last couple of years. It's never been a really big seller, so we've been working with clients to understand, why not, right? It's a nutritious product. It ticks a lot of boxes, but there's just not a lot of buyers out there for it. And it turns out you talk to ingredient blenders and ingredient buyers, and things like the green color and the short shelf life and the strong taste profile, those are great in very niche applications, but they're not good in terms of a big mainstream ingredient application. So that's the type of innovation we've been working on, is trying to take these existing products, preserve the nutritional content, but make them a little bit more user-friendly, familiar to the consumers, which in our case is a lot of ingredient buyers and ingredient blenders. So product innovation, again, that's the second thing that had to happen, and we feel like we're well underway there. The third piece is the concept of whole plant utilization. So I don't think it's wrong, and I don't think anybody would be offended by this, but when we look over the first decade plus of hemp development in Canada, it was really focused on the grain value chain or the food value chain. The concept of whole plant utilization was talked about, but nobody had really been able to put it together yet in a commercial way. I think Hempco was a leader before they were acquired by Aurora, but never quite got it together where they're able to execute on that whole plant utilization model. So that's what Blue Sky spent the last 4 years doing, is commercializing this concept, getting all the pieces in place. It's a great model once you can get all those pieces in place. I'm absolutely convinced that this is the right way to go, but it is a very challenging model to get in place, because really what you're trying to do is taking 3 fairly distinct production processes and 3 fairly distinct markets and bring them all together under one umbrella. So from our standpoint, we spent 4 years doing this. We feel like we've got this proven out and de-risked, and now ready to scale up. The fourth point holding the industry back really has been just lack of scalable production. We operate a pretty decent-sized hemp food processing facility in Saskatoon, and it's a whopping 5,500 tons a year of input, which might sound like a lot in the context of some other hemp facilities, but in the context of broader acre agriculture, that's nothing, right? That just means that's a small facility with high operating costs. We as an industry have to start producing at bigger scale to get costs down so we can compete. So the point is, though, those are 4 things that we feel like are very well advanced at this stage, and as we get these across the line, there's no reason why we can't start to think about a 1 million acre potential for industrial hemp, or even beyond that. So Blue Sky, we're doing a lot of different things, and again, this concept of whole plant utilization, it's sometimes hard to explain to outside investors, so we've really tried to simplify the story and position ourselves as what we call a biorefinery. And this actually plays quite well in Alberta, where people are generally understanding of the refinery concept. But our input, rather than crude oil, is the whole plant, the whole industrial hemp plant. We've experimented with a whole bunch of different harvesting techniques over the last 4 years, but what is working the best right now is we're typically doing double pass. So we're combining the grain, capturing the chaff off the back, and then doing another pass for stock material. Again, that changes on the year depending on what you want to optimize for, but that is, whole plant in one way or the other is our input into the process. Then, we put the different plant fractions through a variety of dry fractionation approaches, and on the cannabinoid side, ethanol extraction. And again, out comes 3 categories of products. So again, we're competing in 3 value chains: the industrial products, the nutraceutical ingredients, and the superfood ingredients. So whole plant utilization, again, this is an interesting story, because I think 3 years ago when we were, or 4 years ago when we were getting started and we were out raising our first money, that was just when the CBD craze was starting, and nobody we spoke to could understand why we didn't want to be a pure play CBD company. I absolutely believe that CBD is a part of the equation. I think it's still going to be a very robust, solid market, but being a pure play CBD company never seemed to be a very viable business model to us. Our view has always been that it's got to be whole plant. So again, the main advantage of whole plant utilization and what we get out of it is first a significant cost advantage. If we can execute this model right, we can still pay the farmer a premium to canola and have our input costs into each value chain being about 30 to 50% of our competitors. So again, this is where we think that industry has to go to get input costs down, to get our sale prices down, and really expand the pie and the opportunity that we're chasing after. So whole plant utilization, again, economics is one of the main drivers, but environmental footprint is obviously another, in that leaving nothing to waste and being able to sequester CO2 and hopefully someday be able to monetize those CO2 credits. We really do believe that this is the model of the future. The bottom slide as well just adds a little bit more depth to what we're trying to achieve with our genetics program. And again, this is going to be a very, very powerful driver to reducing cost of production for hemp products of all kinds. And if we can execute on this genetics program properly, again, we should be able to double grain yields from where we're at right now in the next 5 years. Stock yields, there's quite a range, depends on kind of what we want to optimize for, but I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that we should be able to do double from what we're doing right now. And CBD potencies as well, right? I mean, 1 year, or I guess 2 years ago, we were typically growing CBD or plants with about 1% potency. Last year, we were about 5% in the field, and with the genetics that we expect to roll out in the next 1 to 2 years, I don't see a challenge getting to 10% potencies. So this is broadacre farmed, ultra low cost hemp flower with 10% potencies. This competes with cost of growing in regions like Colombia. So I think it's hard for a lot of people to believe that we can be that competitive, but this model works. So again, just to elaborate a little bit more on kind of the innovation and the types of products that we're trying to bring to market. So these are the two products that were subject to the announcement this morning that we want to scale up production for here in Alberta. So the top one being the hemp seed oil. So on the left is the traditional cold-pressed hemp seed oil that we're producing today. Again, wonderfully nutritious product. I like the taste profile, but it is pretty punchy. As I said before, again, when you're thinking about mass production, large-scale markets, selling into ingredients, they want products that are easy to blend, which means fairly clear color profile, fairly neutral taste profile, long shelf life. This is well over 2 years, and a high smoke point. So I believe the smoke point that we're at now is about 410 degrees. Your traditional cold-pressed oil is, I think, more like around 330. So it's good for a drizzle on a salad, but it's not good for mainstream cooking. So again, this is a product that absolutely should have mainstream market potential and really be able to scale up to be potentially a multi-billion-dollar a year product category. Similar story on the protein side. On the bottom left there is our 50% protein that we and a lot of others are selling today. A lot of the same comments, the color profile, the taste profile kind of hold it back. Doesn't have a particularly good mouthfeel. So the process that we've been able to develop for this 70% protein gets it to a nice neutral color, neutral taste profile. And probably the most exciting thing about this is we can produce it at a very low cost. There are high concentrate hemp proteins out there today. There's, I think, even a 80, 85% protein. There's a few that are producing a 65, 70% protein. But we'll be able to price this at about a quarter of what industry's pricing their proteins at. Again, we've developed this so it can go head-to-head against pea proteins of similar protein content. So again, super excited about the opportunity to really scale these products up with dedicated facilities here in Alberta. So just to wrap up in terms of Blue Sky and what we have in terms of facilities. So we're operating out of 3 main facilities today. Actually, the top right is in Saskatoon, and that's where we have our hemp food processing and our cannabinoid extraction. It's a 15,000 square foot facility. We actually take pride in the fact that we have one of the smallest CBD extraction facilities out there. We take pride in that because we can actually produce more than just about anybody, but we're doing it in an incredibly efficient footprint, which just means lower cost of production. So most of our production comes out of the Saskatoon facility, but we do have 2 satellite facilities, one on the bottom left there in the town of Rosetown. This is where we've developed a process that we call reduced flour and leaf. This is sort of the secret sauce that exists behind the scenes. But this allows us to collect that chaff, be able to recover any grain that's left in the chaff, recover any of the stock material that's left in the chaff, sell that into the industrial market. But more importantly, it also concentrates the CBD to make for more efficient extraction. Our third facility is there on the top left. That's also in just outside of Rosetown, and that's where we plan to build a decorticator in Saskatchewan, a very different low-cost type of decorticator, really kind of going at lower-end applications, but that pairs very well with what we're trying to do on the grain production side. And that is it. Are we taking questions now, or? No, we'll do that. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.